Welcome back to the deep dive. So I want to start today with a bit of a confession. If you go into my living room, there's a specific shelf on my bookcase, and it is absolutely groaning under the weight of, a very specific genre of book.
Let me guess. The Find Yourself section.
You know the ones. Discover the real you, unlock your inner potential, find your true north, that kind of thing.
The self-help classics. The archaeological dig approach to identity.
Exactly. And the assumption in all of those books is that somewhere deep inside me, buried under layers of stress and bad habits, there's this golden, shiny statue of the real me.
Right.
And my job is just to dig until I find it. But looking at the stack of research we pulled for today, I'm getting this sinking feeling that maybe I've been digging in the wrong spot. Or maybe there's nothing to dig for at all.
It is a bit of a rug pull, isn't it? But that is exactly the twist we're starting with today. We've pulled together a really diverse stack of sources. We're talking social psychology, ancient Chinese philosophy, modern sociology on burnout.
And even some futurism on AI.
Exactly. And the central thesis that connects all of them is pretty radical. The self isn't a hidden treasure you discover. It's a construction project.
So less Indiana Jones, more Bob the Builder?
In a way, yeah. The core idea is you don't find yourself. You create yourself through action.
Okay.
And what makes this so relevant right now is that this construction project, it's under attack. It's being besieged by, biological fatigue, by crushing societal pressure, and, as we'll get to, by algorithms that want to build yourself for you.
That last part about AI is genuinely unsettling, and I want to make sure we leave enough time for that. But let's start with the foundation. If I'm not finding a treasure, what am I actually building? Because the self feels so vague. It's a fluffy concept.
It can be. But our first source, drawing heavily on the work of social psychologist Roy Baumeister, breaks it down into something surprisingly mechanical. He argues the self isn't one nebulous cloud, it's a structure.
A structure with parts.
With three very distinct parts.
Okay, let's lay it out. What's the first brick in the wall?
The first component is self-knowledge. This is the narrator in your head. It's the part of you that gathers data about, you. It tracks your preferences, your memories.
The storyteller. So it's the part that says, I'm the kind of person who likes jazz, or I'm bad at public speaking.
Exactly. The librarian keeping the records. But the storyteller is just that. The librarian doesn't actually do much.
Okay.
The second component is the interpersonal self. And this is where people often get tripped up. This is the you that exists in public. It's the role you play with your boss versus with your mom versus on a first date.
Yeah, I've always felt a little guilty about that. Like if I act differently around my boss than with my friends, I'm being fake.
Right. Inauthentic.
Yeah, like I'm putting on a mask.
And Baumeister would say that's a fundamental misunderstanding. Those different versions aren't masks hiding the real you. They are you. The self is evolved to function in groups. Being professional with your boss isn't fake. It's your interpersonal self working correctly.
Okay, that's actually huge relief. So it's context dependent, not deceptive.
Precise.
So we have the librarian and the public face. What's the third part?
This is the engine, the agent self, or what psychologists call the executive function. This is the part that makes decisions, exerts control, and actually does things.
The driver.
The driver. If self-knowledge is the narrator, the agent self is the one driving the car.
And this connects back to what you said at the start. If the agent self is the driver, then the self is defined by where you drive the car, not what the narrator thinks about it.
You are what you do, not just what you feel. But here's where it gets really interesting. That three-part structure narrator, public face, executive, it's a very Western way of looking at things.
Very individual.
Very individual, very structured. It assumes I am a distinct entity, separate from you.
And our sources contrast this with an Eastern perspective.
A complete 180. The notes highlight the Chinese cultural view, which is often described as relational or dialectical.
Dialectical. That is a $5 word. Break that down for us.
In this context, it just means the self doesn't exist in a vacuum. In the Western view, you're an atom. In this Eastern view, you are the space between the atoms. You can't describe who you are without describing your relationships.
So you aren't just John.
You aren't just John. You are a father, a son, a neighbor, a colleague. If you took away everyone you knew, you wouldn't just be lonely. In this view, the very definition of you would just collapse.
It reminds me of that story in the reading Zhuangzi and the Butterfly. I've heard it before, but in this context, it hit differently.
It's a beautiful allegory for this fluidity. So Zhuangzi, he's a philosopher, he falls asleep, and dreams he's a butterfly.
Right, just flitting around, totally happy.
Totally happy with zero memory of being a human named Zhuangzi. Then he wakes up, he's back in his body. But he's stuck with this genuine question. Am I a man who just dreamt he was a butterfly? Or am I a butterfly now dreaming I am a man?
It sounds like a philosophical stoner thought at first. Whoa, what is reality?
Yeah.
But what's the actual point of that for the self?
The point is fluidity. It suggests the self isn't a statue made of stone. It's a process. In the dream, the self was a butterfly. Waking up, it was a man. Both were real in their moment.
So the self is a verb, not a noun.
The self is a verb. It changes based on where you are and who you're with.
The self is a verb. I like that. It feels active. But, here's the problem with verbs. Doing stuff is exhausting.
It takes fuel.
And that leads us to the second chunk of this research, which I found so validating, the biology of willpower. Because if I'm the agent self, if I'm the driver, well, the driver gets tired.
This is one of the most practical insights in the entire stack. We need to talk about the theory of ego depletion.
It sounds like something that happens to a CEO after a bad quarter. Their ego gets depleted.
Well, it's actually happening to you every single day. The research compares self-control, that executive function, to a muscle.
A literal biological muscle.
A biological muscle. It runs on glucose. Every time you make a hard choice, resist a donut, suppress your temper, you're doing a rep. You're burning fuel.
And just like doing bicep curls for 6 hours, eventually the muscle just fails.
Complete failure. And the scary part is that the executive function handles everything. Work focus, emotional regulation, kindness. When the tank is empty, all of that goes offline.
This explains the fighting with your spouse at 9 p.m. phenomenon, which I have to say felt like a personal attack when I read it.
It's almost predictable by clockwork, isn't it? Think about it. You've both had long days. You've used up all your decision reps at work. You get home, the tank is empty, your glucose levels are literally lower, and then some tiny thing happens.
Like, whose turn is it to load the dishwasher?
Exactly. And because your executive self is asleep at the wheel, you don't say, oh, could you do it?
You snap. You say the thing you shouldn't say.
You snap, and then you spiral into, wow, I'm a terrible person, or our relationship is broken. But the science says, no. You're not a bad person. You were just biologically depleted.
So the old advice, never go to bed angry, is actually terrible advice.
Scientifically, it might be the worst advice possible in that state. The sources really validate the sleep on it method. Sleep restores the glucose. You literally wake up with a refueled self. You have the energy to be kind again.
I think that's such a crucial reframing. We see our behavior as a moral issue. I'm impatient. But it's an energy management issue. I'm out of fuel.
It takes the shame out of it. It's just biology.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be ashamed if you couldn't run a marathon after staying up for 48 hours.
Right.
So why be ashamed that you can't be perfectly patient when your brain is out of gas?
But let's zoom out a bit. We've got this muscle, these relationships, but we're living in an environment that seems designed to just crush that muscle. The sources bring up two terms from Chinese internet culture that feel universal: involution and lying flat.
These are fascinating concepts. They describe how people are adapting when the self just can't take it anymore.
Let's start with involution. It sounds like a math problem.
Think of it more like a hamster wheel on overdrive. Involution describes a situation of intense, fierce competition, but no one's actually making any progress.
Okay.
The classic analogy in the source is a movie theater.
Okay, set the scene.
Imagine you're in a crowded cinema. Everyone's sitting. But then one person in the front row stands up to get a better view.
So the person behind them has to stand up to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the person behind them. Soon, everyone is standing up. No one is seeing the screen any better than when they were sitting. In fact, it's worse, but now everyone's exhausted.
And if you sit down, you see nothing.
That is involution. Increasing effort for diminishing returns.
That feels painfully relatable. Just working harder and harder to stay in the exact same place, and lying flat is the reaction to that.
It's the polar opposite. If involution is running until you die, lying flat is falling down and refusing to move. It's opting out. It's a sociological trend of people doing the absolute bare minimum to get by.
No striving for promotions, no buying houses.
They've just calculated that the cost of playing the game is too high, so they just stop.
So these are basically defense mechanisms for the self.
Yes, the self trying to survive resource scarcity. But the problem is, neither is a good long-term strategy. Burning out is bad, but checking out completely. You lose that agent self entirely.
So if we shouldn't run the rat race, and we shouldn't just give up, where's the middle ground? What do the sources suggest?
They offer a three-step exit strategy. And the first one is about differentiation. They call it finding your lane.
Which means?
Stop competing in the general arena. Don't try to be richer, smarter, and fitter than everyone else.
Yes.
That's just standing up in the movie theater. Instead, focus on differentiation. What is the one weird, specific thing you can do that no one else is doing?
Be unique, not just better.
Exactly. Strategy 2 is shift your mindset. This links back to energy. Comparison drains energy rapidly. Acceptance saves it. The source suggests accepting that involution exists, but refusing to let it dictate your self-worth.
Detach your internal value from the external race.
Stop looking at the scoreboard every 5 seconds. And that leads to the third strategy, which I think is the most concrete.
Okay.
Values over standards.
Distinguish those for me. They sound like they could be synonyms.
They're very different. A standard is external. I should own a home by 30. I should be a VP by 40. Those are bars set by society.
They're pass-fail exams.
Right. And if you miss them, you feel like a failure. Values, on the other hand, are internal. I want to be creative. I want to be helpful. I want to be curious.
I see.
You build your identity around your values, not society's standards. Because you can control your values. You can be creative today, whether you own a house or not.
That distinction leads right into the next section, which I found really liberating. Busting the myth of the true self. Because if we're prioritizing values, things we choose, we're admitting we're creating who we are.
Yes, and Baumeister is adamant about this. Stop looking for the true self. It doesn't exist. There's no pre-written script. But there is something useful called the ideal self.
Okay, how is the ideal self different from that should self we just talked about?
The should self is a tyrant. It uses guilt. You should have done this. It looks backward. The ideal self is a compass. It's aspirational. It's who you want to be. It pulls you forward.
So the ideal self is the goal, but the sources warn us not to hold on to it too tightly. Why is that?
Because of the water metaphor.
Yeah.
This brings us back to that Eastern philosophy. The source advises being like water.
Right, water doesn't have a shape of its own. It takes the shape of the cup or the riverbed.
Exactly. And if you try to be a rock,
you break.
You break. If you have this rigid idea of, I am a strong, silent type, and then life throws you a situation when you need to be vulnerable and communicative to save your marriage, you'll fail. Your self is too rigid.
But if you are water,
you flow into the new shape,
Yeah.
You adapt. Your identity isn't a fixed object, it's your ability to navigate a terrain.
I love that. You're defined by your motion, not your shape.
Right. Identity follows action.
Okay, so we've built the structure, we're managing our energy, we're dodging the rat race. But now we have to talk about the storm cloud on the horizon. We have to talk about AI.
Yeah. This is where the deep dive takes a turn.
Mm-hmm.
The sources suggest that artificial intelligence is threatening to fundamentally rewrite the definition of human identity, and not in a subtle way.
Most people think of AI as a tool, a superpowered spell checker. How is it messing with my soul?
The sources identify 4 specific ways the virtual self is being altered. The first is externalization.
Meaning the definition of me is moving outside of me.
Yes. Think about the algorithms you use. TikTok, Netflix, YouTube. They know what you want before you do. They analyze your past behavior and say, this is who you are.
And we just accept it. Netflix suggests a show, I watch it.
Exactly. We outsource our preferences. You aren't deciding your identity. A code is reflecting a version of you back to yourself, and you're just nodding along. It's a feedback loop.
That's creepy. What's the second shift?
The self is being quantified. You become data points, your steps, your heart rate, your credit score, your likes. You stop seeing yourself as a complex mystery and start seeing yourself as a spreadsheet to be optimized.
Which makes us feel like we always need to be fixed.
Correct. Which leads to number 3. The self is being averaged. Big data doesn't care about your weird, specific nuances. It buckets you. Oh, he's a male, 30 to 40, likes tech.
Your uniqueness gets sanded down. And the fourth?
Instrumentalization. We become tools for the platform. But the source points out a really specific danger here. AI companionship.
Like the chatbots people are dating. AI friends.
Yes. On the surface, it seems harmless. I'm lonely, this bot talks to me. But the source argues this is catastrophic for the self.
Why? If it makes people less lonely, isn't that a good thing?
Here's the catch. AI relationships are frictionless. An AI partner never challenges you. It never has a bad day. It is programmed to validate you.
It's an ego massage.
Exactly. But remember the muscle analogy. The agent self grows through resistance. It grows by navigating conflict, by dealing with other people's messy emotions. If you replace humans with AI, you're removing the weight from the gym.
You atrophy. You lose the ability to handle the friction of real life.
That's the danger. We risk becoming fragile narcissists who can't handle a real human interaction because it isn't optimized for our comfort.
That is a terrifying thought. So if the machine is trying to turn us into these quantified, frictionless data points, what's the countermove?
The source is very clear. We have to double down on what makes us inefficiently human. Emotion, initiative, agency.
We have to choose the friction.
Yes. We have to actively choose to be messy. We have to choose real relationships over easy ones. We have to choose to create our own values instead of letting the algorithm suggest them.
So we need to be the water, not the spreadsheet.
That's the perfect way to sum it up. Water is messy and it spills, but it's alive. The spreadsheet is static.
We've covered a massive amount of ground. Let's try to synthesize this for everyone listening.
Sure. I think it boils down to 3 pillars. 1, the self is a structure, an agent that runs on energy. So respect your biology. You aren't a bad person. You might just be tired.
Pillar 2.
The self is relational. You are defined by your connection. So find your unique lane and define yourself by your internal values, not society's external standards.
And pillar 3.
The self is a project, not a discovery. And in the age of AI, you have to fight to keep that project yours. Don't let an algorithm tell you who you are. Engage with the messy, friction-filled real world. That's where the self is actually built.
I love that. It makes the whole thing feel less like a mystical quest and more like gardening.
Exactly. You plant things, you water them, you weed them. It's work.
And it's never finished.
Never. That's the beauty of it. You can always plant something new.
So for you listening, here's the challenge. Stop trying to find yourself. Go out and do something. Build the version of you that you want to see. Sleep when you're tired, hug the people you love, even when they're annoying, and don't let a piece of code tell you who you are.
Well,
before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought. We talk about how algorithms define us based on our past data, what we clicked, what we bought.
it's a backward-facing mirror.
It is. So if finding yourself digitally is just looking at a reflection of your past, isn't that a trap? If the self is created by new actions, then maybe the most human thing you can do today is something completely unpredictable, something the algorithm says you wouldn't do.
Surprise the spreadsheet.
Surprise the spreadsheet, break the pattern. That might just be the only way to be truly, authentically you.
Thanks
For
for
diving deep with us, we'll see you next time.